Welcome to Planet Doug Behind the Scenes. It is Sunday, October 15th. It's actually about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I normally record these sorts of videos in the morning, but right now my laptop is busy exporting a video. It's actually a behind the scenes video, and according to the clock, it's going to take 2.5 hours to export it. I think it's going to go faster than that, but the initial estimate is 2.5 hours, so I have some time on my hands. And I just watched a YouTube video that I wanted to talk about, got my brain spinning. And yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And because of all this, and I have time on my hands, I thought I would fire up my Olympus and chat a little bit about things that are on my mind. And oddly enough, I don't think my technology problems segment has any content. I don't have any notes about technology problems. My last behind the scenes video, I went on and on and on about all kinds of technology problems. But this morning, I can't think of any in particular that are weighing on my mind. There are all the usual ones, but nothing happening like this minute that is bothering me. So I don't think I have any technology to talk about. That's probably good news. So I can move right into perhaps YouTube, Planet Doug sorts of ideas, because I have a few of those on my mind. Just random little thoughts. One is that when you're like editing YouTube videos, or I guess this applies to any kind of work these days, you're working on a laptop and there's a real occupational hazard, because like an occupational hazard of wasting time, because there you are doing your work, you know, if you can call editing a YouTube video work. There I am working, and then I come across something that I've said in the video and I want to check whether what I've said is true or not, whether it is accurate, or I want to put in a photograph, or I want to add a text, some information in a caption. So I skip over to Google and then I do a search to get this information. Or quite often I'm talking about a YouTube video, so what I want to do is take a screenshot of that YouTube channel or that YouTube video, something like that, and then take that screenshot and put it into the video that I'm editing. However, there you are working on your video. Oh, I'm going to go get that screenshot. You go over to YouTube to get the screenshot. 30 minutes later, you still haven't gone back to work because you got sucked into watching other YouTube videos, right? Or you're just on the internet in general, and then you see a headline about some big story going on in the world. Like right now, obviously, there are a lot of major political stories happening all around the world. And then you get sucked into that headline and you start reading, and you read article after article. And before you know it, you've forgotten all about what you were supposed to be doing. Because I've done that myself, where I've gone to get something from the internet, and then I get involved in something there, and then I think, oh, I got to get back to work on the video. So I go back to my video editing window, and then I'm like, oh, that's right. That's why I went to YouTube, was to get that screenshot. And I completely forgot to even do it. So then I go back to YouTube to get the screenshot, right? But yeah, you really have to be careful about that if you want to get something done, because once you get online, you can get really sucked into things, and before you know it, the whole day is gone and you've spent the whole day surfing the web. And I do wonder sometimes how employers are dealing with that, because in a work environment, in an office, you've got all these people sitting in their cubicles on computers. They're all supposed to be working, and yet the world of the internet is right there waiting for them with so much entertainment. It's very difficult to resist. Just, you know, you're busy working, doing some boring accounting or something, and then you just pop over to YouTube, and then, yeah, I mean, you're basically not working anymore. You're taking a break on company time. They're paying you to work, but you're just busy surfing the web. And then how do employers prevent this? You know, how do they keep track of it? I mean, I assume large companies, I mean, they have an IT department, very large ones, and I assume they have access to everybody's computers, and they probably get a report of exactly like everything you're doing on your computer. So every month they can probably see that, employee X, spent 6 hours a day just surfing the internet and not actually working, whereas employee Y, never went surfing and wasn't busy watching YouTube videos all day. But I don't know whether they're legally allowed to do that. Can they monitor what you're doing on your computer to see whether you're actually doing any work or not? I don't know. But it is a occupational hazard, and what I do to kind of prevent myself from falling prey to that is I turn off Wi-Fi on my laptop, and I try to make that a habit so that when I start working on YouTube video or do something else I need to get done, I'll close the Google Chrome window, I'll close everything and open only my video editing program. And that has the advantage as well of speeding up the process, because my laptop can't handle more than one thing at a time. So if I have DaVinci Resolve open and I have an active Google Chrome window with 25 tabs, that slows down DaVinci Resolve. So I close everything that's open, only open DaVinci Resolve, and I turn off Wi-Fi. I turn everything off just to maximize, the resources available to run DaVinci Resolve. And then if I want to get something from the internet, like information, I just make a note about it and I save them all up, and then I go get them all at once and bring them in. Or I'll just do it on my phone, copy the screenshot and kind of build them up on my phone, and I don't have the internet open on my laptop. But that's kind of an interesting thing, that I came across. Something else that occurred to me while I was editing my most recent videos, and this is a problem for me in general, is that I'm not shooting enough B-roll. I'm not shooting enough cinematic shots. And I've been thinking about that a little bit. I went to a mosque in Padang. There's the Grand Mosque. I went to visit it one day, and I had the opportunity, the parking lot attendants, security guards, they were speaking with me, and they says, "Hey, do you want to go up the tower?" And so I said, "Sure, let's do that." And they unlocked the door for me, and one of the guards went up. We climbed up the stairs to the top of the tower, and you go out onto this circular balcony, and you get a beautiful shot of the mosque and the city of Padang and the ocean and the mountains. It's very beautiful up there. And I was using my GoPro at the time, of course, so I'm recording all of this on my GoPro, taking video of the mosque and video of myself and climbing up the stairs. And then I left from that. And then I was editing the video the other day, and I realized I had the perfect opportunity to take my 360 camera, mount it on, the longest selfie stick I have. I actually have two of them, and I bought the second one for precisely this reason. I'll go grab it. I think it's right over here. So this is the classic Insta360 selfie stick. It's very small and light, and then it extends out, I don't know, what is that, 4.5 feet, 5 feet? It's quite long. But then I bought a second one, and you can actually screw it into this one. It's not very it's not that safe, but if you're careful, you can get away with this. And now my selfie stick is twice as long. There it goes quite a ways out. And what I could have done, and what I should have done, is while we were at the top of the tower, put this together, put my 360 camera on the end, and then I could have extended it out off the edge of the tower. There was like a series of bars, that you're closed in this little cage, and I could have stuck this through the bars, and with my 360 camera I could have got an amazing shot of me on the balcony, with the 360 view of the entire tower that I was standing on. Would have been amazing, and it never occurred to me to do that. And there are so many situations, like food is the obvious one, where I might go into a restaurant, coffee shop, have something tasty to eat, and I'm holding the GoPro talking into it. And then when my food arrives, I'll take my GoPro, show the plate, and I put my GoPro down on a tripod, or using my jaws, I clip it to a chair or a table, and then I film myself enjoying the food, chatting about it. But of course, what I should do at some point is get out a better camera, like my Olympus, and then take B-roll. You know, you gotta, get all professional, right? And you take video of your food in, high definition and as beautiful as you can make it. And for that reason, I've always wanted to get a premium compact camera. Sir, the one that's available right now, the Sony ZV-E1. The Sony names just confuse me. Too many Z's and V's and E's. I get them all mixed up. But I think it's the Sony ZV-E1, which has a 1-inch sensor, kind of designed for vlogging. The camera has quite a few problems. It's not really that good, but I think it's the best option on the market right now. It's really expensive for what it is. Like, it's a 1-inch sensor, but I think it came out, they were charging like $900 US for it. But anyway, the advantage to one of those cameras is that it's quite small and light and compact, and you could have it with you all the time. And it would capture some really nice video of your food and things like that. The Olympus could do the same thing, probably better, because it's a micro four thirds sensor, which is a lot bigger than a 1-inch sensor. But of course, my Olympus is quite, it's a small camera for what it is, but it is big and heavy relative to a GoPro. And if you carried that around all day in your knapsack, you're gonna feel it. But I should do it anyway, but I never actually get around to it. And one of the reasons I don't is that the timing, you just don't have time to do all these things. You would need a cameraman to do it. Technically, you are the talent. You're on camera. And in the normal television world, the talent doesn't have to go shoot your own video, but that's what you do as a YouTuber. You're filming yourself, but you should have another person with a camera who's busy getting all the B-roll while you're getting all of the A-roll. But I don't have another person to do that, and it's almost like, you don't have enough time to do it or the opportunity to do it. It's like you would end up having to start and stop all the time, right? The food has arrived, the food is in perfect condition. That's when you need to take the B-roll. So, but I'm filming with my GoPro, oh, the food is here, here's my food, look at it, this is what it is, this is how much it costs, this is the restaurant. And then at that point, before you start eating, that's when you should shoot the B-roll, because once you start eating, you've destroyed the plate. You can't take the B-roll midway through the meal because you've ruined it already. You can't take the B-roll at the end of the meal because all the food is gone. But then if you stop, put away your GoPro, get out your good camera, put the lens on it, start it up, shoot the B-roll, put that camera away. By the time you do all that, your food is cold, right? So now you're not enjoying it as much because now your food has gone cold or something like that. And last point, shooting B-roll requires a completely different state of mind. It's almost like you have to flip a switch and think in a different way. Where, okay, now, like, you're active, you're speaking on camera, you're talking to the camera, getting your A-roll, and then you have to turn that person off and then just go into B-roll mode, new camera. You have to think differently about the video you're taking, the photographs you might be taking. And in the old days, before I shot video, I was always taking photographs. And I had a habit of doing that with different camera lenses. I've talked about this before. Like when I went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia, I would go to a temple and go through the entire temple with, like, say, a wide-angle lens on the camera, because I'm thinking in terms of wide-angle viewpoints. And then I take all these pictures of wide-angle shots, and I go all the way around the temple, come back to the beginning, and then I change to a telephoto lens or a close-up lens, and then I go around the entire temple, recreate the entire walk that I just did a second time, and taking pictures with the close-up lens. And then, yeah, because you can't really go through the temple and constantly change lenses. Like, oh, that's a great wide angle shot, wide angle. Oh, now I want to get a close-up detail of this, change lenses, get that. Oh, now I want, you can't keep changing lenses. You can get a kind of a mid-range wide angle zoom, you know, which can do that a little bit. But then you have to think differently. Like when I'm walking through the temple taking wide angle shots, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for what looks good in a wide angle setting. I'm not thinking about detail. I have to do, I guess maybe that's my brain isn't smart enough for this. I can only keep one thought in my head at a time. So if I'm Mr. Wide Angle photographer, that's all I can think about. And then I have to switch into, okay, now I'm a close-up photographer, and I go through the temple and I'm looking for small details to take pictures of. And I was just doing it as a hobby, obviously. I wasn't taking pictures as a professional or anything. But for video, the same logic applies, where if you're walking through a market, talking on camera, showing things on your GoPro, that's one mindset. And you can't really switch over to the other mindset in the middle of that. So you almost have to go through the whole market, living it as an experience. And now the active experience is over. Now you have to switch gears, go back through the market again with a different camera, and then capture all your B-roll. I mean, you kind of have to do it that way. And lately, while I've been editing my videos, I realized I haven't been doing that at all. And it's understandable. It takes enough time to shoot a roll and then edit a roll. And now if you add shooting B-roll plus editing B-roll, it adds a lot of time to the workflow. So it makes sense not to do it. But this one shot at the mosque minaret, I really kick myself now that, man, yeah, I had the 360 camera with me. I have it with me all the time. I really should have realized what a special moment that was and extend my camera way out from the tower and get that 360 shot, like super wide angle. I think that would have been really interesting, but I didn't do it. So that's something that occurred to me while I've been editing my own videos. And continuing with the theme of YouTube videos and travel vloggers, I was really pleased today to see that there was a new video from the Lost Boys. And the Lost Boys are, I think they're American, two Americans, Rob and I don't know how to say the name of the other guy, Shane. It's like Cheyne, I think. I almost want to say Cheyenne or Shane, or I'll just call them Shane, I guess, Rob and Shane. And they're in the middle of a motorcycle journey that they say is going to take them from Jakarta to the northern tip of Sumatra, the city of Sabang. I guess Sabang is an island off the coast of Banda Aceh in the north. So they've been posting all these videos from Sumatra, basically, and I've watched all of them. And there were three of them for a while. There was Rob and Shane, and I think they had a guy from Spain who was a little bit older with them. So there were three of them for a while, but now the Spanish guy has disappeared. I haven't watched their most recent videos. They went out to the Mentawai Islands, and I haven't watched that series yet. So maybe the Spanish guy disappeared. You know, he went back home or something during that period. But anyway, they posted a new video, and now it's just the two of them, the two Americans, Rob and Shane, and they went to Bukit Tinggi. So that's why I was excited. I thought it would be so cool to see Bukit Tinggi from their point of view. And I watched the video. In fact, I watched it 2 times. It's about 29 minutes long. And I don't know if they're going to post more videos from Bukit Tinggi. I don't think so. I think this is going to be their one and only video, which is really disappointing to me because I really would love to see as many as they would be willing to make, you know, from Bukit Tinggi. But these guys as YouTubers, of course, are much smarter than I am. They're not going to hang out in one place for a long time. They're going to keep moving and then go to a new place. You know, every video is going to be from a new location. So they hit Bukittinggi, and I think they stayed there for 3 days, shot this, you know, and out of those 3 days, they make one video, 29 minutes long, and boom, they're on to the next place. So their video starts with them in Padang, and I was very happy to see that as well, because I knew they were going to ride their motorcycles from Padang on a road. I know the road very well because I had been up and down it between Bukittinggi and Padang many times on many different vehicles. And so I got to see a road. You know, it's very, very familiar to me. And of course, they didn't show anything from Padang. Maybe in their Mentawai videos they showed Padang. I'm not sure. I haven't watched those yet, because you go from Padang out to the Mentawai Islands. They probably didn't show anything about the city of Padang because it's not known as a tourist attraction. They would have been focused on, you know, the Mentawai Islands. But anyway, I was hoping to see more of Padang because I really liked that town. It really made an impression on me. But they basically just got on their motorcycles and just started riding. And you saw a little bit of the streets. And they talked about how the drivers in Padang were the worst, most dangerous, most chaotic drivers they've seen anywhere, which was kind of interesting. Yeah, because I personally, I wouldn't say that myself. When I rode my bicycle from Dumai to Bukittinggi, and I was going down the highways of Sumatra, I did have the experience that they were very dangerous because the roads were so narrow and there were so many trucks. Riding a bicycle or riding a scooter was quite dangerous, but it wasn't because they were bad drivers. I didn't think they were bad drivers at all. I thought they were quite good drivers compared to like my experience from different countries. I thought they were quite good. They were very organized. The truck drivers would see me and they'd go pull out around me, and they seemed to be very aware of their surroundings. So that wasn't my impression, but that's the one thing they said. And then they were on the highway climbing up into Padang. And they were unfortunate when it comes to the weather. Yeah, I felt bad for them about that. They hit rain, just a lot of rain along the way, a lot of cloudy skies. So they didn't get a lot of the views, which I think is a risk when you're moving that fast. Because when I was in Bukittinggi, Padang area, I also encountered tons of rain. It seemed to never stop raining, but I still managed to get some beautiful views and some beautiful video of the scenery because I was there for so long. You know, if you stay there that long, chances are that you're going to get the occasional day with clear skies. So I was there long enough to at least get a few days of clear weather. And when I went to Lake Maninjau in particular, I had some really beautiful weather and I got some gorgeous video and photos of the lake. And they weren't able to get that. They went to Lake Maninjau, but it was just hazy and cloudy. They got some nice drone shots. I feel like they must have taken the drone shots on a separate day because I don't know if it was clear enough on the day that they went there on their motorcycles to get those shots. I don't know where the drone shots came from. But anyway, I felt bad that they had such bad weather. And then they rode up the highway. They passed by the waterfall, the famous one there that I stopped to visit on one of my trips. But they didn't stop. They just sort of blew right past it. And then for me, talking about their video, like my overall feeling was one of disappointment. But that's coming from my perspective where I want to see everything. Right. I know that area quite well, and they basically just showed little clippy highlights. But I wanted behind the scenes, I wanted everything. I wanted to see their hotel, you know, the inside of their hotel rooms, the entire journey from getting to spot to spot. I wanted to see everything, but of course they didn't do that. They made a 29-minute video about 3 full days of activities. So obviously they can't cover very much. So from my point of view, personally, the video was disappointing. I wanted more, you know, more content. But yeah, I'll take what I can get. And then the very first thing they did, they arrived in Bukittinggi, and the first thing they did was ride their motorcycles to Lake Maninjau. And it was really interesting for me to be able to contrast everything they did with everything I did. And so, for example, when I went there, I went up to this lookout point, and they went to the lookout point, the exact same one. But I was lucky. I had beautiful views of the lake, and I was so impressed with the place. I'm still impressed with the place, you know, in retrospect. But they went up to the viewpoint, and they couldn't really see very much. It was all covered and hazy. And when they were, the one guy, when he's up at the lookout point, there's a special park. You have to pay an entrance fee to go into this park, and they have paragliding and zip lining and selfie stations. And then he was basically standing there, and he was saying, yep, we got selfie stations over there, we got this over here, we got this over there, and we got a coffee shop over there. You can go there, get a nice cup of coffee. And that was his summary of the place. But of course, my experience of being there, I saw the coffee shop, and I went there to get a cup of coffee, but it was open, but there was nobody there. Like, I couldn't get a cup of coffee because the whole place was abandoned. The paragliding, I saw the paragliding launch area, and according the Lost Boys were saying, yeah, you can go paragliding here, you can do this here, you can get a coffee here. My experience was, nah, I couldn't get a coffee. Maybe you could do some paragliding, but there was nobody there either. Nothing was going on. And then everything at this place, even the zip line, there was no staff there. So even if you wanted a zip line, there was nobody there to hook you up where you could pay for the experience. But anyway, so that was, I noticed that contrast between their experience and mine. They didn't do any of these things either. They just said you could do them all. And my experience was, well, no, actually you couldn't. At least I couldn't the day I went. There was nobody there to take your money and let you do any of these things. I couldn't even get a cup of coffee. So anyway, they left from there, and then they did the 44 curves. You're at the lip of the volcano, of the caldera, and then you go down this amazing road, you know, 44 curves all the way to the bottom. And they talked about that, they highlighted that, but they didn't mention that it has 44 curves in total, and it's known as, you know, the highway of 44 curves. It's known as a local tourist attraction, but they didn't bring that up. And oddly enough, though, or actually not oddly enough, typically they said nothing about the lake. They said it was big. I think when they were on the viewpoint, the guys, they were looking out over the haze, and they said, wow, it's big. But as far as I can tell, that's the only thing they said about the whole place. So I watched the video from beginning to end, and then I thought, huh, did they even say that it was a volcano, that it was a caldera, that the lake, you know, was the result of a super volcanic explosion, you know, that created a mini, you know, it's a big deal speaking geologically. And then after the eruption of the volcano, the whole caldera collapsed, filled with oil, you know, that's the whole point. And in their video, I thought, oh, did they even say that? So I went back to watch it again, and no, they never even mentioned that it was a volcano. So again, from my point of view, that's disappointing. When I'm watching a YouTube video, to be honest, I want all the information, but I know I'm a little bit unusual. You know, I'm demanding too much. But you think there should be at least a sprinkling of information, you know, something about what they went to visit, what they went to see. But yeah, very, very quick visit to the lake, and they left from there, went back to Bukitingi. I was wondering whether they would visit the Japanese tunnels, and they did. They actually went to the tunnels, but again, they couldn't talk about it very much because it was such a fast trip for them. They had a lot of things to do, to include in their video, and they didn't spend a lot of time. So yeah, just a short little segment. And one thing I was mainly interested in was, would they repeat the story that the Japanese killed all the local laborers? You know, that the story is that the tunnels were built by conscripted local workers, and then when the tunnels were completed, the Japanese soldiers killed them all in order to keep the tunnels a secret. And I talked about that at length in previous behind-the-scenes videos. So I was curious whether they would say that, and they didn't. They did talk about how the tunnels were built by conscripted laborers. And to be honest, I'm not 100% convinced that that's true at all. They said that the laborers came from Java, that they rounded up all these people on Java against their will, basically took them as prisoners and brought them to Sumatra and put them to work digging these tunnels. And yet I haven't seen anything to say that that's actually what happened. I don't doubt that it could have happened, but I think it's also just as likely that the local laborers were local. Like, they weren't from Java at all, but the Japanese mainly used people from the Bukittinggi area. That could very well have been. It could also be true that the Japanese soldiers themselves did most of the labor. I don't know. Even when you visit the tunnel complex, there's no actual official history of what happened to this place. But they did go in, and they had a local guide, and I think I knew their guide. I think when I rode my bike one day down into the canyon, I passed these two guys that were hanging out, two Indonesian men hanging out outside one of the exits from the tunnel, and they introduced themselves to me, and we chatted for a while, and they were, guides who would, for a fee, will take you into the tunnels. And I think one of the men I was talking to was the guide that they used, to go in there. And then he told them, a bunch of stories about the history of the tunnel, focusing a lot on the prison. There's like a room in the tunnels that was used by the Japanese as a prison. And then about ghosts, that there's a lot of ghosts in the tunnel. And I didn't hear that when I was there, but I guess that's one of the local stories, that the tunnels were haunted. And if you stay there for a long time and you stay quiet, the ghosts will come out and you will see ghosts. But I hadn't heard that story, but that's the story that their guide told them. And the Lost Boys also went to the clock tower, of course. That's the centerpiece of the city of Bukittinggi, the Jam Gadang, the clock tower. And again, from a Planet Doug point of view, they sort of failed the test, because for me, the most interesting thing about the clock tower is its history. And again, I watched the whole video, then I got to the end of it and I thought, wait a minute, did they say anything, like just one thing about the tower? But there wasn't a single fact, like nothing about its history, its architecture, its design, nothing. And I thought, no, that can't be right. They must have said something. But I went back and I watched the whole video a second time, and actually, no, they didn't. I mean, what they did in their video was probably smart for YouTube, because they just treated it as a social occasion. There's a plaza around the Jam Gadang, and on the weekends in particular, it fills with Indonesian visitors, not just from Bukittinggi, but mainly from other parts of Indonesia. They come, and then there's just a lot of activity. So our two Lost Boys were chatting it up with all kinds of local people, taking pictures together, and then they went dancing as well. There were some local women there, had a music player, and they're doing karaoke, and they're all dancing in the plaza, and our Lost Boys danced with them, and that was their experience of the clock tower. And that's very good for YouTube. But good for Planet Doug would be, well, give me something. I want a little bit of, like, what is this thing? The clock, okay, it's a clock tower, but anything about it? So, I remember reading a lot about the clock tower. I never featured it in a video, so I never had a chance to even talk about it. There's one day I rode my bike past the clock tower, and I stopped and I shot some video, and I basically just said, okay, that's the famous clock tower, and I didn't say anything about it either. So, because I was assuming that I would eventually shoot the Planet Doug video about the clock tower, but I never got around to it. And by the time there was like a chance to do it, I had been there for so long and the clock tower was so familiar to me, it just felt kind of dumb to go make a video about it. It was too late. I'd missed my opportunity. So I never did make a video about it. But if I had, I would have at least mentioned that it was built in 1926 and it was a gift from the Netherlands. A gift. Officially, it was called a gift from Queen Wilhelmina to the city of Bukittinggi, and the clock mechanism itself, this is according to a local legend. I don't think it's actually true, but it's part of the history of the tower that the clock mechanism itself is a twin to the one in Big Ben in London. That there's only 2 of these that have been made in history. One is at Big Ben, and the other one is at Jam Gadang in Bukittinggi. Again, I don't think it's 100% true, but that is the story, the legend of this clock tower, that the clock itself is a twin to the one at Big Ben, which, yeah, gives it a very interesting history. And the other really interesting thing about the tower to me is that since it was a gift from the Netherlands, the top of the tower had a kind of a European design, had sort of a dome shape and a rooster on top. So there was a rooster up there. That was the original architecture. And then when Japan occupied the Dutch East Indies, they occupied Sumatra, they removed the European roof structure and they replaced it with what they think of as a more Asian thing, like a pagoda, a temple pagoda roof structure. And that's what the Japanese did. And then after Indonesia gained independence, the local people, the Bukittinggi government, they removed the Japanese roof and they put in a local Indonesian designed roof structure, and now it has the shape of the traditional Minangkabau roof structure, the water buffalo horn shape. So in fact, this tower had 3 different roofs depending on who was in control of the country. When the Dutch were in control, they put in a Dutch roof, and when the Japanese were in control, they put on a Japanese roof, and then the Indonesians replaced it with a traditional Minangkabau roof, which again, I think is a fascinating part of the history of this tower. And you can see photographs if you go to the local museums. They have photographs of all 3 different roof structures, and they talk about the history of them all. So it's a well-known thing, but the Lost Boys didn't mention it. Yeah, so they kind of failed the Planet Doug test from that point of view. But again, it's understandable because that's not what they're there to do. They're documenting their fun motorcycle journey, across Sumatra. So I have to cut them some slack about that. And watching this Lost Boys video from Bukittinggi inspired me to create a new Planet Doug criterion. I call it the GPM, which stands for guys per minute. I've been watching all these videos from Kuala Lumpur, like YouTube vloggers. They go to KL and they all go to Batu Caves and they feature Batu Caves in their videos. And it might be a small segment or they might make a whole video about the Batu Caves. But I've seen so many of them that I came up with a Batu Caves test for judging the quality of the video, and have all these criterion they have to meet if they go to the Batu Caves. Everything from how they get there and how long they spend there and what they say about it. Things they say and things they leave out and things they get wrong or things they get right. It's the Batu Caves test I judge all these videos on. But now I've developed a new criterion, as I said, called the GPM, the guys per minute. It is basically how many times a YouTuber says guys per minute in their video. And I think the Lost Boys are the champion of this. They were saying it so many times, I started to count them. And I ended up with, for the whole video, the video is 29 minutes long, they said guys 48 times, which gives them a GPM of 1.65. So it's 1.65 guys per minute. And I find these sorts of things interesting because I've noticed it in myself where you can develop verbal habits. And I make an effort to break them if I can. Especially if you're making videos or recording audio, you hear yourself speak, and if you hear that you're saying every sentence, yeah, I'm going to go have dinner, and I think I'm going to go to this restaurant, and if you say over and over again, you got to stop yourself. But it's really easy to fall into that habit, like it's a verbal tick to use certain words over and over again. And when it comes to YouTubers, guys is probably the main one, because you're speaking into the camera and you have this sense of talking to people and you're trying to be friendly and upbeat, and you just put guys at the end of every sentence. Hey, we're going to Bukatingi, guys, and today, yeah, guys, the weather's not looking great, and guys. So yeah, that's a lot. And not only do they say guys, there's another, when they don't say guys, people will often say bro, or folks, or baby, man, buddy, dude, and the Lost Boys, they say that one of those 18 times. So it's 48 guys, 18 bros, and that leads to an overall GPM of 2.2. So it's kind of like a GPM of 2.2 for the Lost Boys. It's a lot. Yeah. Brand new Planet Doug judging criteria. The GPM, maybe it'll become world famous now. A couple other random YouTube thoughts. Out of nowhere, I stumbled across a video, and it was actually, I think it was a YouTube short. And more about YouTube shorts in a minute. I'll tell this story. But anyway, I really have been enjoying YouTube shorts quite a bit. I get addicted to them, and they're so easy because you can just sort of zoom up, just go on to the next one, the next one, the next one. And I'm watching them, and I came across a video from a YouTubing comedy duo from Australia called Hamish and Andy. And I'm assuming that in Australia they're relatively famous because I think they even had their own TV show. They have they put on these specials called Gap Year, I think, and spend like 1 year in different parts of the world. So there was like a gap year in South America, gap year Europe, gap year wherever. I haven't done a real deep dive into these guys, but I get the impression that they're famous. And when I looked at their YouTube channel, their first YouTube video was posted 16 years ago. And I think that's a record for any YouTuber that I've seen. That's an old YouTube channel to go back 16 years. And they have over 1,100 videos on their channel, going back 16 years. But the short that I saw caught my eye because in the past I've also been kind of hooked on this guy. Well, I forget his name now. I didn't look this up, so I don't have the facts at the tips of my fingers, but there's a guy who shoots videos where he allows himself to be stung and bitten. And I think he calls it the sting zone. So he will allow, he hears about some sort of an African hornet that has the most painful sting in the world, and then he'll catch one and then let it sting him, and then somebody films him reacting to the pain of that sting. And I remember him doing it with the bullet ant. And I think the bullet ant has the reputation of being the most painful sting on the planet. That if you are stung by a bullet ant, it is an experience you will never forget. And this guy, the sting zone, I watched the video where he was stung one time by one bullet ant, and it's almost like he died from the pain. It was so bad. It was like one of the worst pains he had ever experienced. Enter Hamish and Andy, two fun-loving comedians from Australia, and they're somewhere in South America. I don't know where. They're in, deep in the Amazon jungle, and they hear about this local tribe that has a ritual that when a boy enters manhood, he has to undergo this painful ritual to become a man. And what they do, this is just mind-boggling to me, they take these two mittens, they look like oven mitts, made out of rattan, so there are gaps in between the layers, and they will put like I think 200 bullet ants in each oven mitt. So they actually grab each one and insert it into the gaps so that the body of the ant, the head, is on the outside, and then the bottom with the stinger is on the inside. And they'll put 100 in each oven mitt, I think, maybe 200 in each. There's a lot of them. And then the young men of this tribe, when they're about to become a man, they have to submit to having these oven mitts put over each of their hands, allowing the bullet ants to sting them, and then they have to endure the pain. And I guess there's a whole ritual involved, musical instruments, dancing, and it's a big ceremony that ushers them into manhood. I heard them telling this story, and I'm thinking, there's not a chance. How can anyone endure that much pain? There's just no way. I don't even believe this. Hamish and Andy go in there as a lark, as a joke, as a YouTube stunt, basically, and they are going to submit to this ceremony and film it. And they have this big lead up where Hamish and Andy, only one of them is going to do it, and they go up to the tribal chief and say to him, he has to choose which of them needs it more. Like, which one of them is the least manly, so they need to undergo this ritual in order to become more of a man. And then the chief eventually picks one of them, and I can't remember, I think it was Hamish. I think it was Hamish that he picked. And based on like, the chief had to interview them, and they had to give a speech about how manly they were. And based on those speeches, it was pretty obvious Hamish was going to lose, because he just treated it like a joke and played it up, like made himself look less and less manly rather than more manly. So the chief had to picked him. And I listened to them tell the story later on, like kind of a behind the scenes account of this experience. It was about four years ago, I think, that this happened. And and in their story, they say that when they agreed to do this, they assumed that they would get stung by maybe one ant. And they put their hands in, they get stung once, they have to put up with that. And they heard that the pain of one sting is the equivalent of getting shot. And that's why they're called bullet ants. So that when one ant stings you, it feels like you just got shot and a bullet, went through your arm or went through your hand or something like that. And he figured, okay, for YouTube, for our audience, it was actually done for their TV show, The Gap Year. For them, I will endure this sting, and then like getting stung by a bee, and then it will be over. There will be pain, and then it will be over. Not a chance. Put his hands in there, and he ripped his hands out probably within a second and a half, within 2 seconds. Like he couldn't even leave his hands in the mitts. Like the pain was so severe, he was stung so many times. And as they explained later, that these bullet ants are aggressive. They're stuck, so they're already angry because they've been jammed into these oven mitts, and they're trying to escape, though they feel like they're under attack. And when each ant stings, according to scientists, biologists, they release a pheromone, and the pheromone encourages all the other ants around them to also sting. So when he put his hands in there, he was stung like 100 times or 50 times per hand. And the pain was so instantaneous. He put his hands in, screamed in pain, and ripped his hands out instantly. And then he went through days of agony. There was like an 8-hour period of him just screaming, like 8 hours of just rolling around screaming, moaning, crying. Just the pain was so overwhelming. It was like 8 hours long, and the pain still wasn't receding. And they eventually says, yeah, we got to get him to a hospital. There's one really gruesome moment, you know, where Andy, his partner, was, you know, feeling really helpless because here his comedy duo partner was in far more pain than they anticipated. They really didn't think this was going to happen. And he's like, he didn't even know what to do. And he's trying to help him, but there's nothing he can do. And at one point he says, let me pour some water on your hands. And poor Hamish is holding out his hands so he can pour some cool water on them. And Hamish is just like, you know, his hands are shaking so badly from the pain. It was a really horrifying image. But anyway, they put him in one of these local canoes and they take him down river, and it probably takes an hour or 2 hours to get there, and they get him into a hospital. And to be honest, I'm surprised he didn't go into shock or have a heart attack or just die because of this experience. But anyway, he was hospitalized and they treated him, and the pain really didn't go away, I don't think, for it's like 2 days or 3 days, something like that. But at the beginning, like I said, it was like 8 hours of such extraordinary pain that he was moaning and screaming and just rolling around the entire time. It was like absolutely insane. But yeah, the things you come across on YouTube. But so far, that's the only video I've watched from Hamish and Andy. As I said, there are 1,100 more to go through if you wanted to watch these guys. And it looks like they do a lot of traveling. They go around the world to find material, you know, for their comedy and for their routines. But as I said, this was a YouTube short that I saw originally, and I've been watching a lot of YouTube shorts, but something I've noticed that bothers me is there's a trend now in YouTube shorts, which I don't like. You see this in so many things in life where something new appears and then ordinary people are doing it, and it's kind of interesting and entertaining, and then as it becomes popular, then corporations and big celebrities jump on and they realize, oh, we can make money with this. And then when all the big money-making people get on board, everything starts to change, and it's not nearly as organic and entertaining and natural as it was at the beginning. So in this case, one thing I've noticed with YouTube shorts, they're now editing them so that they're circular. It's not like the video has a beginning and an ending. They write a script so that the opening words of the video match the closing words. So you watch the whole video, and at the end when they're speaking, their sentence just goes in a circle and starts off the beginning sentence again, and it just goes around and around and around. And I don't know, I kind of find that a little bit annoying. It's too professional, and yeah, I just kind of don't like it. I just like the old style. And I've noticed that so many of these YouTube shorts are becoming stupid, where there are people out there who see the money-making opportunity, I guess, and what they're doing is going around the internet stealing little video clips that were funny or endearing, you know, like all the animal videos that are out there where a little deer comes into somebody's backyard, looks through the window, then comes into the kitchen, has a snack, and then goes out. And there's like a little 1-minute video about this on YouTube that gets 1 million views, 10 million views. Anyway, these YouTube Shorts people are grabbing all those videos and they're putting them on YouTube Shorts, and then they're adding narration. Like someone is describing in words what is happening in the video. And I just find that to be so annoying. It's like, stop. I can see the video. I don't need you telling me in this. It's a computer-generated voice too, like an AI voice. They're very good voices. They're very natural, but the grammar is atrocious. Like whoever is doing these things is not a native speaker of English, and whatever script they wrote to give to the computer, they don't know how to write in English. And the grammar, the verb tenses, the sentence structure, everything is just horrific, and I can't sit through those things. They bother me so much. As soon as a video starts and a narration, boop, I just hit the arrow button. Okay, next one. And if For some reason, I still watch it with the narration. As soon as I hear a grammatical mistake, nope, next one. I can't bear to listen to these things. But it looks like YouTube Shorts are being destroyed by the big money-making people now. It's kind of annoying. Feels like there should be quality control or something, you know. But yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on YouTube Shorts. You may have noticed some terrible audio quality for my Hamish and Andy bullet ant story. So funny, I talk about this all the time, that when you're shooting video, it's so easy to make mistakes, like technical mistakes. There are like 1,000 of them. There are like 1,000 booby traps just waiting to get you. And you constantly, no matter how careful you are, you keep making mistakes, or at least I do. And in this case, it's pretty funny because I've got this Rode Wireless Go microphone and I put it on this cord around my neck. And it's usually under my shirt, or sometimes it's on top of my shirt, depending on where I am and what I'm doing. But this cord is actually around my neck because I keep a little key on it. And this key opens all the little padlocks that I have on all my bags. Like I use little padlocks to lock up all the zippers. Just a little, you know, a little bit added layer of security for things, my knapsacks and pannier bags and things. So just now I needed to open one of my bags, so I grabbed the microphone and spun it around, so I had the key at the front, and then I opened the padlock and I did what I needed to do, but I forgot to bring it around. So that entire time, this microphone was hanging on my back, pressed in between my back and the pillow, right? And I didn't notice until quite late, so. Yeah, so many mistakes you can make. Anyway, the microphone is back where it is supposed to be, and I'm just going to leave the Hamish and Andy story alone. I'll just leave it there, and I'm not going to retell that story. It wasn't that important that I have to retell it with better audio. So, yeah, a pop culture story to end this video. I wanted to talk a little bit about the South Korean show Moving. This is a show that I've been watching for a while now, and I talked about it in another behind-the-scenes video, but that was when I first started watching it. And I was very impressed with it back then, and I said a lot of wonderful things about it. I'm now up to episode 12, and I'm happy to report no complaints. Love the show. I was worried, like a lot of shows start out well and then they disappoint you, you know, they break your heart at some point. So far, absolutely not. For me, this show has just been getting better and better and better. And there have been some episodes, quite recent ones, I was just amazed because I have a lot of pet peeves and a lot of quirks, a lot of interests when it comes to movies and television shows. And I have a lot of pet peeves when it comes to superhero plots. You know, the big name Marvel stuff, you know, the Avengers. I have a lot of problems with the writing of those movies. And just how things are, especially how superpowers are portrayed. And in Moving, later in the show, as I'm moving through it, the superpowers are playing more and more of a central role. And when they're on display, I just love them. They do them in such a way that pleases me, in exactly the way Marvel movies don't please me. So anyway, I really enjoy that side of it. And the show is really taking its time. I talked about that in my first summary of this show, that so many mainstream shows, not even mainstream, but even indie shows coming out of North America, they feel pressure, I think, to get an audience right away with their very first episode. They got to come out of the gate with all their story, all their characters, their guns blazing. So they can't take their time. They can't slowly build a story. They feel like they have to just throw everything into the first episode. So the story is moving way too fast. But for whatever reason, Moving in South Korea, they didn't feel that pressure at all. So they have 20 episodes in the first season, not like 6 or 10 even. Like even 10 episodes is too short for me these days. They have 20 episodes to work with, and that allows them to really take their time building the story and building the characters. And they did, so for me, they've done a really nice job with it. That I think you would say that in terms of the overall story arc, the first episode starts in time, right in the middle, and then they start the show there, and they're moving forward, but then they go back all the way to the beginning, and now they're telling the story. They're putting in episodes that give the backstory leading up to that point. And then I guess around episode 15, they'll start off here again and tell the end of the story. But they're doing such a good job of that. Like when they start in the middle, there's all these things that you don't know. You know enough to be interested in the story and interested in the characters, but there's so much about these people that you don't know. You're aware that there's a lot more to them, a lot more to their history than they're telling you. And you keep waiting to learn more. And then an episode comes along where they go back in time and they fill in all the blanks. You're like, oh, this is so cool. And you learn more about these people. And then you know, they're all filled in, and then you go back to the main story again. Anyway, it's very well done. I'm enjoying it a lot. And I'm really enjoying how they're showing superpowers, where I have a big problem with this as well in the big Marvel movies, DC movies. Some of the indie movies get it right, but the big ones, I don't know, I don't find them that engaging from that point of view. But Moving is doing a really nice job. And in these later episodes, the superpowers that these characters have developed become more central to the plot. And there's even an entire episode that's all about one guy and the things he can do. Well, there's a couple episodes like that show exactly what they're capable of doing, and the way they show them I just find visually so pleasing, and they're just so exciting to watch. I really like them. Funny too. There's a lot of great humor in the show. Yeah, and there's so much to do with giving you perspective into South Korean culture. I talked about that before as well. I used to live in South Korea, and it's so much fun for me to see all these Korean, the Korean cities, the way people live, how they behave, the food, how they speak. All of that is quite familiar to me, and I love seeing it in one of these shows. And in this show in particular, there's a lot of references to the proper way to address people, whether they're older than you or younger than you or senior to you in a corporation or in a business. There's ways of speaking with people. And of course, I'm not aware of that at all. Even when I was in Korea, I wouldn't know. We don't have that in English, really. If I'm speaking to someone older than me or someone younger than me, we don't have different pronouns, different forms of address for different people. We have it a little bit in English, but not to the extent of Korean language and Korean culture. And in this show, it comes up all the time, where they're just speaking in Korean, and then I'm reading the English subtitles, and then somebody will stop mid-conversation. It's like, you dare address me that way? How dare you use the familiar form address? You should be using the formal form. But of course, in English, if I say to someone, you, we just say you. But Korean, they might have several forms of you, and you're not supposed to use the familiar you for someone who's senior to you. And of course, in Korean, that's what they're saying, but the English subtitle doesn't have any equivalence. So I get caught by that all the time. My character's, you dare say that to me? I'm your boss. You should speak more politely to me. And I'm reading the English, like, what did I miss? Like, what did he say? But all it is, different forms of addressing people, which most Asian languages have, of course, but English doesn't have. And I kind of get a kick out of that every time it happens. So yeah, Moving, for me, highly recommended. The one thing I'll say about the show, and this has become more apparent to me recently, I hadn't thought about it as clearly before, but there can be good shows, excellent shows, but they can be good in different ways. In particular, when it comes to repeat viewing. So there can be a show that I would say is a really good show, and I would say Moving is an excellent show. I'd recommend it to most people. But at the same time, I'm wondering, would I ever watch it again? And you have to wonder about that. Like, does that make a show worse if you say no? Like Moving, it's being the interest for me, the engagement is being driven by wanting to know more. I want to know what's going to happen next. But I do have the feeling that once I get to the end of the series and I know everything, I'll be more than happy to watch season 2, but I don't know that I would go back and watch it a second time. And I'm wondering, does that count against it? I don't know whether it's fair to count that against a show or not. Because I don't think I would watch it again because I know I missed a lot. I'd like to fill in a lot of the blanks. But in terms of entertainment value, I probably wouldn't go back and watch it a second time. But you take a show like Heroes, I've talked about that as well before, also kind of a superhero show, very similar to Moving in a way. So you've got Heroes. I know that story so well because I've watched it multiple times. So I know everything that's going to happen. Every single episode, beat for beat for beat. I know exactly what's going to happen next. But I could sit down right now, start watching Heroes, and I would just love it to pieces. I could watch the whole first season all over again and enjoy it, the 10th time just as much as the first time. I could watch it over and over again because each episode is so entertaining. And I wonder, why is that? Where is that coming from? And that repeat watching isn't there for a show like Moving. Anyway, I was thinking about this and thinking of all the shows and putting them in the two different categories and wondering whether it made one show better or worse than the other. Because I don't think it makes it worse. The fact that Moving wouldn't really stand up to repeat viewing doesn't lower my estimation of the show. But anyway, there are some shows that are in a completely unique category. I don't know if there's any other show like it. Maybe there is, but Game of Thrones is a big one because right up until the final season, it has extreme rewatchability because while the seasons were ongoing, I would rewatch the same season over and over. And I could, in theory, go back and rewatch all of those seasons of Game of Thrones again and again and again and enjoy them all. So it has extreme repeat watching appeal, just like Heroes does. I could rewatch the first season of Game of Thrones again and again and again. But the final season was so bad, it destroyed the entire show for me. So I can never go back and watch Game of Thrones again because I know that that final season is waiting for me. And when I start watching the first season and I'm enjoying the story so much, all I can think about is I know where it's going, and I know that the final season is going to undo everything that's good about the show leading up to that point. So even though Game of Thrones is so enjoyable and I could enjoy all the episodes, there's no way I can ever watch it again because that final season was so awful and it just destroyed everything in retrospect. So I don't know how many shows there are like that. To be honest, Heroes is a little bit like that because the final episode of the first season was disappointing. It really was. Heroes is so good and then you get to the end and the final episode is like, huh? Really? That's how you're going to end it? I didn't like it. I thought they could have done a much better job. So what I usually do, when I have rewatched Heroes a number of times, but I'll just sort of watch all the episodes until I get to the finale, and then I won't watch the finale because I know it's just going to break my heart, you know. I might skim through it just to refresh my memory. Oh yeah, I didn't like that at all. So that's kind of funny. But not as bad as the final season of Game of Thrones. I don't think anything will ever rise to that level. So I think that's it for now. I'm going to wind down behind the scenes. Just as I said, I wanted to chat a little bit because my computer was busy exporting another behind the scenes video, and it's all done now. So I can go back to that and work on my next Planet Doug Sumatran video. So that's it, shutting down, and I'll see you in the next video.